Hey everybody, Nick here with Rogue Overland. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to install a swivel plate on your Nissan NV 3500 van. If you've been following this channel, then you know that we have a 2020 Nissan NV 3500 van, which we've converted to four-wheel drive, and we've put a pop top in it. And we've dubbed that the Adventure Van because it's designed to take our family of 5 out on adventures, no matter what that adventure might be. Anything from camping in the backcountry to a weekend mountain bike trip. So what I'm going to do in this video is show you the installation of a swivel seat that we've ordered. We're going to put the swivel seat on the passenger side here so that that can spin around when we're in camp or when we're getting ready for a mountain bike ride or whatever it might be, and just provide a little more living space, if you will, in this area right here. And we went with a company called discountvantruck.com, and we went with that company for 2 reasons. First, made in America. You know we love products that are made here in America. It's made in Lake Havasu, Arizona. And secondly, because there's a hole in the middle of the plate that allows for the power cords to get up for the heated seats. So I just want to show you real quick. The plate, which you saw in the beginning of the video, is has that hole right there in the middle so that the power cords can go through. And then it's made of steel, nice and sturdy, okay? And when you order it, it's going to show up boxed like this, okay? So there's nothing really fancy about the box, the packaging. There's no foam or bubble wrap or anything like that in there. It's just the plate with the little piece of plywood around it to actually just on one side of it that it's bolted to, and I think that just gives it some stability. But for the most part, it's pretty much just the plate inside the box. Ours showed up without any damage, so that's fantastic. The only thing you might want to make note of, not that it's a huge deal, but the spray paint that they put on there, some of that was worn off from, well, seems like from when it was in transit, but no big deal. You can just touch that up yourself. Definitely something you want to do if you live in somewhere that is colder and wetter more often than what we deal with here in the Southwest. 2 other things I think are worth mentioning. First off, it does come with instructions. So there are some instructions there. I mean, it seems pretty straightforward. Bolt the plate to the bottom of the chair, but there are instructions. And secondly, this company did have a lot of bad reviews when we placed this order. Bad reviews about delayed shipping. And I will say that we paid for this ourselves. No affiliation with Rogue Overland when we made the order. They don't even know we're doing a video on this. And ours showed up in 3 days. So take that for what it's worth. In our experience, the customer service and the shipping was fantastic. And so that is that. So here we go. Let's get into it. We're going to do the installation of this swivel plate on a 2020 Nissan NV 3500. First things first, going to take a 10mm, get under the hood and disconnect the battery cable. And that's just because there is an airbag in the seat, and so we don't want that airbag module to have any power to it. Next, I'll get under the seat and disconnect the wires. You're going to have the wires for the heating element and the wires for the airbag. And use whatever you like to use. They're just the little plastic disconnectors. I like to use just these little, I've always called these like HVAC screwdrivers because my dad's a HVAC and he always carried one of these around, but whatever these are called. So I'll go ahead and get those unfastened. Now this next part is a little confusing. The instructions say to disconnect the seat slide from the base, but on the Adventure Van, the slide is permanently fixed to the base. The only thing that I can disconnect is the slide from the seat, and that is with 8 13mm bolts. So, excuse me, 8 13mm nuts. And so 2 on each corner, basically. So I have this ratcheting and swiveling wrench, so I'll get under there and disconnect those now. One thing I want to clarify about getting the chair detached from the slide is that the 4 nuts on the driver's side of the passenger chair, you access from underneath. The 4 bolts on the passenger side of the passenger chair, you have to actually remove that plastic cover on the side of the chair to be able to access those. And that's just 2 Phillips screwdriver heads, Phillips screws that you will take off to then remove that plastic so that you can access those 4 nuts. All right, the nuts are undone, so let's see if we can get this chair pulled up off of the studs. And will you look at that, the gator jaw, not only a great recovery device, but also a little handle for the seat. So before I jump into throwing the swivel plate onto the factory base, I just want to say if you enjoy outdoor and off-road content, consider checking out some of our other videos. We have adventure videos, we have trail review videos, we have rig walk around videos, lots of great outdoor content. Go ahead and check that stuff out. And you can also find us on all social media avenues at Rogue Overland. And if you want to help support what we're doing here on the Rogue Overland channel, then you can buy something through the Amazon link in the description below. There's no additional charge for you, but we get a small marketing fee. And you can also, if you don't like what we have listed down there, those are some of the products that we use. If you don't like those products, you can just click one of those links and then do your normal shopping on that same browser, and we will still get credit for those sales. Now we're on the swivel plate being attached to the factory base. And what the directions say to do is to attach it with the lever forward, and then in the lever in an orientation where it has to be lifted to disengage and allow the chair to swivel. Okay, so we'll be attaching the swivel base to these studs that are already there. Those are the factory attachments. And just quickly to gain the orientation, so it looks like this side will be down because the directions say for the lever or lever, depending on where you're at, to have to go up to disengage and allow for the chair to swivel. So it looks to me like that will be the orientation, just like that. So then what I'm going to go ahead and do now is, just for good measure, put a little bit of Loctite on there and get all 8 of these nuts back on to attach the plate. All right, so I'm going to do my best to show you this and explain it. If you look right here, right there, okay, you can't get this nut onto that stud because it interferes with that plate. So you have to leave the nuts that you have access to accessible loose, so that you can pull this up. See how I pull that up? And it's gonna functionally make that stud shorter so you can fit that bolt on there, or nut on there. So let me see if I can show you what I'm talking about here. So if I lift this up, okay, let's see here. So if I lift that up like that, then I can scooch that nut over. Now I can push that down and I'm good. All right, next step is to, per the instructions, attach the factory seat and slide to the swivel plate. But again, I think these are kind of generic instructions. On the NV3500, the slide is permanently fixed to the base, if you will, or to the brackets that attach to the floor, and everything bolted up just fine. So it looks to me like in this scenario, it's going to be seat, swivel plate, and then slide / factory base. And the slide moves just fine. So far so good. We'll go ahead and bolt the seat onto the swivel plate now with the hardware that they provide. So I ran into the first major problem while putting this all on, and it's not really a major issue, but it did halt my progress temporarily, is they send, see if I can get this to where it'll focus and pull it into focus. There we go. So they send these, they send a bolt, a nut, and a lock washer. But the problem are the holes, especially the two front ones, it needs a washer. The holes are too big, and so I had to run out to the hardware store, and I guess you could just buy a couple washers, but I also noticed that the bolts are actually longer than they need to be, significantly longer. So this, I think this is maybe 1.25 inches, and so I grabbed a setup that is 1 inch long, and I probably could have gone even a little bit shorter than that, but yeah, so basically just went ahead and grabbed a bolt, grabbed the 2 washers. Where are we at? Grab the 2 washers that you're gonna need to sandwich that, then a lock washer, and then your nut. I went ahead and did a nylock just for fun, but with the lock washer, you don't really need that. So no big deal, but just something to keep in mind, because that was about another, at the grade 8 hardware, is another 17 bucks worth of hardware. And so consider that when you're purchasing this or getting ready to install that. And I'm actually going to send an email to them and just let them know that's what I ran across on our particular van. All right, there it is. So it is bolted down, and pretty much the rest of the installation is just the reverse order. All that has to be done is run the wires up through the plate and reattach them, and then reattach the plastic trim, and it's good to go. So this is not a review video, as this has just been installed, so we haven't had time to test it. And as you know, if you have been around this channel for a while, we like to spend a lot of time with products before we put out those reviews. The initial impression is that this is a solid product, especially if you consider that it's from a company making it here in America. Now, the only issue I ran into was with the hardware, but that's easily fixed with a quick run to the hardware store, or hopefully in the future, the company is going to remedy that and send the appropriate hardware. And then the only other thing I'm noticing is that some of the plastic is very close as far as clearance to the plate, and that's just the way it goes. They're trying to keep it as low profile as possible. So in order to prevent that seat from being 3 or 4 or 5 inches taller than it is from the factory, it's going to be a little bit tight. No big deal, but just something to be aware of. Now, if you have experience with this product or other swivel platforms for the NV3500, please consider leaving a comment below and letting us know your experience. Also, if you ran into any issues installing this on your vehicle that were different than anything that I've run into here today, please leave a comment below. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to the channel and smashing that like button. You can find us on all social media avenues at Rogue Overland, and we'll see you on the trail.